Hi there VC, it's Steve Whitty here with another video. This time video about the meetup at VC meetup we had in Leeds last week. Now before I go any further, I have got a bit of a stinking cold. I do sound a little bit bunged up and I may be coughing and blow my nose during the video. I do apologise, but I thought if I don't get it done today I'll never get this video done. What I'll be focusing on is my purchases that I made on the day. Now, the first things I do need to remember when I go on these trips, meetups next time, is actually make a note of the places I go to. My memory of the places we went to is a bit sketchy, and that's nothing to do with the amount of alcohol to drink. I only had a couple of beers, I think, all day. The day was a long one for me. I caught the 7 o'clock coach from Birmingham up to Leeds, which is about 3 hours. Had to stop in Sheffield and arrived just around 10 o'clock, which is where the Reckle Fair, which was being held at Holy Trinity Church in Balls Lane in Leeds, which happened to be only about a 10-15 minute walk away from the bus station. And when I got in, paid my £2 to get in. And the first person I saw there was Chris, merely Chris. He's been a bit quiet on Facebook, and by his own admission, this is the first chance he's had to buy any records in a long time. So we had a bit of a chat, a bit of a catch up, and while flicking through some of the bins, life's going. Excuse me. Yeah, it was good to catch up with Chris and just have a bit of a chat. Then I went off and then had another look at another stores. Then I bumped into Jason Stephen. Now he's got a channel on the VC. Now he'd spoken to James Griffiths, and so he was aware we were coming. I just introduced myself. We just had a chat. He was there. He got himself a store, so he was selling some records. He mainly deals with sort of like 60s. That's his big thing. And the conversation moved on to the Beatles' White album reissue, whereas Jason was going to go for the full box set. I was sort of like edging towards just the CD reissue, but that's a subject for another time. So we had a chat and we said, "I'll catch you a bit later." So moved on, and I've come across this store which was selling some albums for £5, and I came across a couple that I thought I fancied. I did set myself a little bit budget, so the first record I picked up, and this is a band I hadn't got any albums by. This is URIAH HEEP's WONDERWORLD. This came out in 1974. Now this issue I've got is the American issue, so it's on bronze, but it's through Warner Brothers, so it's the American release. I quite enjoyed the album itself. It's the last album to feature Gary Fane on bass. Unfortunately, on the tour, he'd become a little bit unreliable due to his drug habit, and during the tour, he suffered a massive electric shock on stage, which sort of incapacitated him a little bit. And then during that time, I think his drug problems got worse and he became unreliable, not turning up. So the band sacked him early 75. Unfortunately, he succumbed to his drug habit around the end of 1975. Yeah, I think John Wetton replaced him for that. So, yeah. Now, I was pleased to say find that album. URIAH HEEP, especially their original stuff, tends to be quite expensive. So to find that for a £5, I was quite happy with that. Excuse me. Next album I found, I was absolutely really pleased to find this. I used to have it back in the time, and I think this was the album that got the most reaction when I showed it. This is Kiss, Music from the Elder. Now, I brought this when it first came out in 1981. For those who are not aware, this is very much this is the Kiss concept album. This was about a young man initiation into some sort of sect or whatever. And the plan was that there was going to be a musical, film, whatever, hence why it's called Music from the Elder. Of course, it never picked off because the record didn't sell. I mean, Gene Simmons even calls it his Genesis album. I think the band pretty much disown it. In fact, the band do not appear on it at all, which, for a band as visual as Kiss, was quite unusual. But I just loved the album when it first came out. It was so much different to Unmask, which sounds weedy in comparison to this. And I have got the CD, and the order is different on the CD to the album, but I prefer the version on this. You know, you got Fanfare, Just a Boy, Odyssey, Only You, Under the Rose. Now, when I used to listen to records as a kid, I used to listen in my bedroom lying on my bed, and I felt when the first time I heard Under the Rose with the male voice choir and everything, it just felt like I'd been pinned to my bed. It was just that powerful. Then Lou Reed co-wrote some of the tracks. You got Dark Light, World Without Heroes. I think he co-wrote Mr. Blackwell. There were a couple of his. So it persuaded, you know, Lou Reed to contribute. I don't know, maybe they paid him a significant amount of cash. Yeah, absolutely brilliant album. It's probably the last album to feature Ace on guitar, Ace Frehley on guitar, and I think his guitar playing sounds so great on this. You know, he appears on Creature of the Night on the cover. It's very much more visual than he may have appeared on a couple of tracks, but it's pretty much Vinnie Vincent. Around this time, I bumped into John Dowling and Hedley and Martin. John Downing, Hedley and Martin. In the fair they'd arrived, and James Griffiths and Dean arrived as well. Dean and Hedley are quite local, so it's very much a local fair for them. We were waiting on John Bellamy, but there's a different story to that. I'll come to a bit later. Anyway, I went across this bins where it was £4 each, free for a tenner. So from there, I picked up the Hooters, One Way Home. Got Satellite on there. Used to be Cyndi Lauper's backing band. Very good Americana roots type album. I enjoyed that. A couple of comps. Fill Your Head with Rock. It's a double album from CBS. You've got Chicago, Santana, Spirit, Steamhammer, Blood, Sweat and Tears, Black Widow, Birds, Moondog, Janis Joplin, Johnny Winter, Pacific Gas and Electric. Condition of the record ain't great, and I think I probably let the title run away with me. In fact, it was that rather than checking the condition, but hey ho. But the comp I was really pleased to find. Nice enough to eat. One of these island comps I've been picking up recently. You've got Fairport Convention on here. Mock the Hoople from their debut album. Spooky 2's Better By You, Better Than Me. Jethro Tull, Free with Woman, Heavy Jelly, that's a really good cracking track that is, Bloodwind Peak, Traffic, Nick Drake, then King Crimson's 21st Century Schizoid Man, Quintessence, and Dr. Strangely Strange. There you go. There's some of the albums that we're plugging on the back. So really pleased to pick just that comp up. That was worth just paying the £10 for that on its own. Excuse me. And I thought that would be it. So you just, as you go around the record fair, you tend to just mooch around a little bit. It was quite a strange fair. There was guys selling sealed albums for £10. It was like Guns N' Roses. There were old reissues, some Mission Live albums, some very, very, very various stuff, and a lot of the dealers were buying it so they could flog it on for a profit. And then I come across this store, this gentleman, and I looked at through his boxes, and he hadn't got it priced up. He said he hadn't got round to pricing them yet, and I thought, well, I'll give that a miss. But then he had another box where he had got priced up, and these were like, and he said these were album records that were not in great condition. And from there, I wasn't going to buy anything, but then I saw this album. It's Penetration Coming Up for Air. their second album from 1979. It's very much the band's last album. This is a German pressing on Virgin. I was aware of Penetration at the time, 79. I'd brought coming to the album as a single. But the album, the track, it wasn't well received. It wasn't... quite a lot of the punk bands, once they've done their first album, when they come to the second album, they wanted to move on from the sort of like the three chords, thrash. They wanted to use their musical chops, and it wasn't quite well received. I mean, the songs are good on this. I quite enjoyed this album. There's the band on the back. And they pretty much split up just after it got released. It just didn't sell as well as the first album, which the name escapes me at the moment. But for £3, plays well. Covers tatty, that's why it's £3. I was not happy to pick that up. So we all meet around, got our stuff, but the problem is John Berry hadn't turned up. Now he'd come up from South Wales night, so he stayed the night in Leeds, but he was having we couldn't get hold of him, and then James finally got through to him and he said he's having trouble parking. So we decided we'd leave the fair. We'd done all it was we'd seen. It wasn't a big fair, it was inside a church, but you know, we'd seen all we'd seen. We knew there were some record shops in Leeds to have a check round. So we went off to, we were going to get a coffee bar, but that was full, so there was a pub next door, so we went in and had a pint. And John met up with James, and we all met in the pub. It's the first time I introduced to John, met John in person, so it was really nice. And we had a bit of a catch up. He'd given James some records. I'd given James some records that I'd brought up. And John gave me 3 albums by Lindisfarne. So the first album, this is Back and Forth. This is their comeback album from 1978. Now, I'd already got a copy of this. I thought I had. But I hadn't got a copy of the American edition. And it's slightly different to the UK and the running order. Run for Home was the lead single. On the American edition, it leads the album, where I think it's something like 4th track down. The album itself is not bad at all. It was on Gus Dudgeon produced it. This is released on the Atco label in the States. So I'll probably keep that one and probably give my UK edition away, or probably just donate it to Oxfam. I don't know. The second Lindisfarne album, John said he didn't enjoy these records. Now this is Sleepless Nights from 1982. Now this appears on their own record label, LMP, and I couldn't quite remember it. It's a very soft album. Some of the old political stuff, but when I heard the track, I Must Stop Going to Parties, I do remember that track. Very much a light-hearted sort of jig about getting drunk, going to too many parties, getting drunk. Comes with a line when the drunk has been punched. No, sorry, when the punch has been drunk and the drunks have been punched. It was played a lot on the radio. It wasn't a hit. But the album itself's not that bad. I enjoyed some of the tracks on it, so I will keep hold of it. But then, also, he gave a copy of this. This is called Lindisfarntastic. Now, this wasn't available to buy. This was given out at the shows. See here, it's a Christmas gift, not for resale or exchange. And this is recorded at Newcastle City Hall. Lindisfarne from the northeast Newcastle area, and every Christmas when they reformed, they played a series of gigs. It's sort of played the home crowd, sing along, whatever. And the album, the song parts are not too bad. However, I think it's Ray Jackson. It goes into a comic monologue. It's a track called Engine Trouble. And as I say, the first rule of comedy is make sure it's funny, and it wasn't really funny. And in the end, the first time I've done this, I just had to lift the needle and just find the next song. It was just, that bit was tedious. But yeah, the music part's is good. Yeah, Lindisfarne live. I've got a couple of Lindisfarne live albums. They do like to get the crowd involved, especially if it's a home crowd. So I pretty much thought that's it. That's me done. You know, go around a few record shops, and you know, as I said, I forgot to make a note of the names. Just three shops, really good shops actually. I think the one had new section was upstairs, second-hand section was downstairs, very tight. You know, we've got about 8, 9 of us in the shop, all with our bags and whatever. Barely enough room to turn, which was a bit of a shame. But I think guys found some other stuff, and then we went to another one. And then the final shop, again, new stuff pretty much upstairs, old second-hand stuff downstairs. And I just found myself flicking. I thought, well, I'm not going to buy anything. Then I went to the sort of like his just in section, and I flicked through, and I thought, oh, that looks interesting. Then I found an album which I thought, for the price, I'm going to take a punt on this. This is Manfred Mann's Nightingales and Bombers, released in 1975. It's cost me £8. And the reason I got it, it's got probably my version. It's got their version of Springsteen's "Spirits in the Night," which I absolutely adore. It's so much, takes that song to a totally different level, really much darker. It's the last album to feature Mick Rogers on guitar and vocals. He left the band pretty much after, and Chris Thompson joined. And that's the next album's when they do "Blinded by the Light," which became a big hit in the States. Manfred Mann pretty much used the majority of Springsteen's debut album as covers over the years. "For You" was another version he did. And the album, the title "Nightingale and Bombers" comes from it's from a documentary from World War II, where it's quite clear you can hear Nightingale singing as German planes are flying across, or was it RAF planes? And that's where the title comes from. I enjoyed the album, so I was pleased to get that. As I say, for £8, where I've seen previous copies go for 20 quid, I was more than happy. After that, we retired to a pub. I think some people wanted food and whatever, and we had a couple of beers. Jason, when he finished his stint at the store, met us in the pub. We just had a good chat, a couple of drinks, and I left around 6:30 to make sure I got my coach home. I didn't get back home till about 11:30, but it was just an enjoyable day meeting up with the lads, just chewing the fat, banter, laugh, talking about music, different music, talking about the VC in general, just how things are going there. Really was good. And we said next one will be Birmingham, which is great for me and John because it's local for us. But it meant that people like Graham, Crackling Vinyl, could come up. He lives in Exeter, so to come up to Leeds would have been a bit of a trek for him. And I think John invited Johnny Seed, and he couldn't make it either. So it'd be nice to have a few more meet up in Birmingham. Hopefully, I've said I'll try and get you to my local record shop. I think you'd enjoy it. And I think actually seeing record shops around different parts of the country makes you appreciate the one you've got. And I do appreciate it more price-wise and wherever. So VC, that ends this video. So if you've stumbled across the channel for the first time and you like what you see, click on the subscribe button. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Love the interaction. Feel free to comment. I'll always reply back to you. So VC, I'm going to get off and back to me cold and coughing and sniffling. And you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Until next video, take care of yourselves. Keep spinning, and more importantly, keep smiling.